Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today, I am introducing you to a good friend of mine, Ophelia Zúñiga. She is so intriguing to me because she is a multitasker, a person who truly embodies what it means to do many things at once and pivot very, very quickly in creating her own journey. She does not have the linear journey that most people would expect people to have. And so I thought it would be interesting to share a little bit about her. So maybe you can reflect on your journey and be inspired. So, hello, friend.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm happy you're here.
I'm so happy to be here. This is beautiful. Yes, it's happening.
Yay.
It's happening.
We're here. 3 adjectives to describe yourself.
Ooh, okay. I would say adventurous, empathetic, and resilient.
Okay, those are good ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just 3. I mean, there's so many. But
I'm like, I think that works.
I'm always interested to see what people, because it catches you off guard.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I have to talk about myself.
Yeah, I'm like, it's funny because I've been doing a lot of reflecting, so you got me at a good time. Otherwise, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Before we get into your professional path, where'd you grow up? Who is Ophelia, the little girl?
So I'm from Los Angeles, born and raised, but I'm first gen here. My parents are both from Michoacan, Mexico. So both immigrants. And I mean, I always like to say, like my whole childhood, I was very lucky to have very good parents. They're very loving, very, they've always been there for the family. Very religious based, was raised in a very like strict Catholic household. My parents are still very, devoted and I mean, semi-spiritually, but there's always been like God in the center of our family, which I'm very grateful for. We didn't come from a lot. It's funny because I always say, I'm like, I didn't know I was poor growing up because my parents made sure we had shoes, a backpack, food, maybe it was like frijoles and tortilla every day, but like there was food and I didn't know the difference, So very grateful for all of that. Throughout from childhood to high school, let's just say, I was always in some sort of extracurricular, like doing Girl Scouting, always doing volunteer work. So I did all of my years of Girl Scouts. I'm the third. So I have 2 older sisters, me, then my younger brother. So definitely in that sibling, environment. I'm very close to all of them still, thank God. And, we just all like balance each other out. I always like to play sport. I did like nothing crazy professional, but basketball was always like what I loved doing. So that kind of kept me entertained. But it wasn't until I went to college, UC Davis. I went as undeclared, not sure what I wanted to do, and I ended up doing psychology. And
me too. That was one of my majors.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, I love that. Okay,
Samesies.
And it's great because it's so broad, like
so good.
And that's what they would always tell me that they're like, psychology is this, human behavior. If I'm working with humans, it's psychology, which is all the time. Thinking. So that was great. I did also, double major, did psychology, double major Spanish literature and culture, which people thought I was like cheating since I am bilingual. They're like, oh, that's like the easy way. I'm like, actually, no, it's really hard. I'm so like, hard. I know Mexican slang. That's what I speak. And now I'm learning Spanglish. Like, I'm like, English contracts are hard for me already. Now Spanish contracts, those big words, I'm like, no, I needed to learn how to do that. And now that I'll get to this part. Now that I work like, Latin music space, it's working great. I'm like, oh, this is what that major was for. I know what these words mean. I know what this is. So, great. Also communication. So am I going too much?
No. It's good. I was going to ask you.
Okay. Yeah. I'm
into academics. Yes. What was your school journey like?
So school journey.
Did you love school?
I did. So I've always loved learning. I always felt like I was more like an undercover nerd because my interests are not what, my sister was like the more academia, like she's like, oh, Harry Potter, this, that, I was like, yeah, the movies are cool. Yeah, this is not, yeah, I like to play sports. Like I had friends that were always, I've always had friends of all paths of life. I had little cholo friends, I had little nerdy friends, like I had a little bit of everything. So no one really knew. People were sometimes really surprised like that I was actually pretty smart. They're like, oh, you're not just like, I'm like, no, I'm an undercover nerd, and my teachers, even in college, everything, not in college because you don't get that personal with them, but I was always a talker. I'd get kicked out of class, but they couldn't get mad at me because I'd get an A. I'd always get like A's and B's. So they're like,
so good.
They're like, she's so smart, but like, but
doesn't listen.
Listen, like, cállate, you know? But, so that was always back and forth. I'm like, oh, this is so much fun. And, I was a procrastinator where I would like study like 3 days before, but made it. But
were you a strong student most of your
majority?
schooling?
Yeah, majority.
You didn't have to try hard.
No, some English was always my harder subject. I was out of all my siblings like in ESL the longest. So English was probably the more, just because like having to read the book and like all this stuff. Like for me, that was just, I'm like, okay, I gotta read this. Yeah. Like, I'm like, I don't know, is this ADHD? I don't know, but I'm like, I need to go like back and forth.
Sure.
But that was always a little bit hard. But everything else was good. I was great at math. No, I think it was. Sometimes I felt like it was too easy, some parts where I'm just like,
you weren't challenged.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's fast forward. And this, I think, is just so interesting how you got into your career. Tell me about your first job, like how you really got started on this path into entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm in college. I'm going to school for psychology, as mentioned. In high school, something kind of sparked for me where I was like, I want to be in radio and like music.
Why?
I just loved music. Like I have musicians in my family, but my dad really had a musical ear and he engraved that into me. Like he'd play like Drop the Needle as a kid type of thing, like an old Mexican classics. Like, okay, ¿qué canción? Like, esta canción, tell me what song is this?
He would test you?
No, he would test me. He's like, who is it? And like, what era is it? And what name? And
so
like,
smart.
And I would just like this, that, so it was fun. I tried to sing, like I recorded myself singing a couple times. Terrible. To this day, I'm like, there's like, I don't understand. I have the ear for it, but I just have, no, it's terrible. Like it's actually really embarrassing how bad it is. And I still liked music, I'm like, oh, well, obviously I can't be the singer. I haven't committed myself to an instrument. I played instruments, but I didn't like commit myself to one. I'm like, I like the business of music. So let me just kind of learn a little bit more of the behind the scenes thing. So, but that was just something that I didn't think there was a career in that though, because in my head, I'm like, you have to be a singer to have an actual successful career, So I went to school for psychology, another interest, but when I was there, it wouldn't stop the idea of like music. So I started with our campus, like radio, entertainment reporter, and our radio station. And then when I was there, I started interning at Entercom Radio out there in Sacramento. So I went to UC Davis, so Sacramento was like the closest big city. Sacramento, and I was a marketing assistant to the marketing director. So doing that, events and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So my first real job was after graduating from Davis, and I moved back to Los Angeles, and I applied to like, oh my God, like over 100 places. Like I was applying and I knew nobody here. That was the thing. Like, I'm like,
Why'd you come to LA?
Well, because my family's from here. So I came back home.
You're coming back home.
Yeah, so I came back home.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I didn't have like a big job lined up. I was just kind of like, let me go back home. And I still wanted to stick out that music entertainment part. So that's where I applied to literally like about 100 places. And it wasn't until 3 months later that CBS Radio, AMP Radio called me back for like a entry-level position, like passing out stickers and flyers and stuff. And I'm like a college grad and I'm just like, yeah, I'll take it for $10 an hour. I'll take it. It was crazy. My parents were not very happy about it because they're just like,
you went to college.
You have a bachelor's. You're not getting a $10 an hour passing out stickers. Like that's not. And I'm like, but I need the foot in. I don't know anybody and I want to do this. In the meantime, I was still working my psychology field doing like behavioral therapy. So that was like my full-time job that I was doing. But I was just really like stubborn about like, I don't know. I feel like I need to explore this like music side a little bit more. So that was my first job. I ended up staying with that company for 6 years. And in those 6 years, it was great because I went from passing out stickers. Towards the end, I would be on air with Carson Daly and producing the morning show and in charge of like the digital production of like the station and all this stuff. So I did move quick. I did have a lot of roles there from marketing, programming. 6 years. That was the 6 years.
Oh, geez.
In that point, So
wow.
Yeah. So that was great. You know, that I got a lot of experience there, you know.
Did you go on the air at the end of the 6 years?
Yeah.
You had
So I did. I was on air for a little. Like I would, so with the morning show, Carson Daly would like bring me in all the time. He's like, come in, you know, let's talk about this. I was like the Latina there too. And I've always been trying to like push more Latin culture, Spanish. I'm just like, this is what's happening. You know, this was before also like Despacito and the big like Latin move happened.
They didn't ever play any of it.
Nothing. And so I would try to push that. I'd be like, oh, let's talk about this. Let's talk about that, whatever, you know. So I did appreciate that Carson did like see that, you know, and he would be like, come in here and talk about Juan Gabriel and come in here and talk about.
Good job, Carson.
Yeah, no, so kudos to him. He was amazing at that, you know, and I always appreciated that. So definitely had, you know, it was nice. That part was nice. Literally had my cousins, oh my God, I just heard you on the radio.
Cute.
So it was cute. And
so then
you know,
where do you go from there?
So from there, during that time, I was also interning at Dash Radio. So on Dash Radio, I got invited by the Baker Boys. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So the Baker Boys, yes, shout out to them. They are LA radio legends, hip hop, everything. They're amazing. They're definitely pioneers here in Los Angeles and in radio, period. And they invited me to be a co-host to a night show that they were having at Dash Radio. So I accepted, and I was doing that as well, live 5 days a week.
Wow.
3 hours every day. Yeah. So after like my morning job with Carson, then I would go do like my home cases with psychology. Then I would go at night and have like my radio show, producing and all of that. So I did that for a while, 2 years. So at the same time, I was doing that, working all the jobs. What the next thing after that was, we got bought out by, CBS Radio got bought out, or I think that's what happened, bought out by Entercom. Okay. And Entercom took over, and there was a bunch of layoffs happening. You know, Carson ended up leaving to focus on the Today Show, and there was just a lot of change happening. And for me, that I was working the morning show, you know, they're like, okay, you know, they weren't letting me go, but they, you know, I was doing different work, but it just felt like a shaky time. It was also like 6 years at this point, where every 5 years I feel like I got to make a move. I'm like, something's happening. So I then, at that point, I felt that shift. Our evening show with the Baker Boys also had to take a pause. And there was just a lot of things where I'm like, okay, I need something different. At this point, I'm also contracted by AEG Golden Voice. So I'm working Coachella, and I'm working, you know, all the event production things for like Coachella.
Doing what?
I'm doing more so production for their camping, you know, like the different logistics for like the festival.
Like the actual
the festival.
Not like the artist.
No, Coachella. Yeah, the actual festival production. You know, like I'm driving around the little golf carts.
That seems like a nightmare, by the way.
It's a lot of work. I mean, you live out there. You literally like live out. Well, when you work it, you're living out there in a bungalow for like the whole month, because it starts, you know, there's 2 weekends of Coachella, then Stagecoach.
Jesus.
So I was doing that. At the same time, I was applying to different jobs, because I'm just like, okay, you know, all the different big LA spots. I did have a couple friends that were at Apple Music at this point. And, you know, they started finding out like, oh, you know, you're looking for something. So they're like, actually, there might be something here, you know, like check this out, you know? And I'm like, okay, this sounds kind of cool. They're like, yeah, give us your resume, whatever, all this stuff, you know? I gave them my resume. It took through like a while to get hit back up. So I was like, maybe this is not happening. Let me keep doing my thing.
And are you doing anything with psychology at this point?
Oh, no. Oh, no. Yes, I am. I still am. At this point, I still am. So I'm still doing
Coachella.
Yeah, Coachella, my cases that I have and all this, because it was just me. I'm like, I'm not giving up this entertainment music part. That was like the thing. And the crazy thing is, like, you know, I'll get to the next step of Apple, but during this period, I can honestly say like it was probably one of the hardest years of my life, just because of the constant change that was happening. It was very challenging. It was like that point where, like, you know, where my parents, like, you know, they're very supportive, but also I had them in the back of my head, like, am I wasting my time? Like, you know, I had cut down my psychology hours, And literally, like, where I'm like, I'm making 20K a year. And this is like years in, 30K. I'm like, this is with the bachelor's degree. And I wanted to go back to get my master's. Like, I'm like, this is not it. And in my head, I'm like, are they right? Like, are they right? Like,
self-doubt.
you know, I'm like, I feel broke. I'm like, I'm stressed out. I'm overworked, underpaid. Like, there's just so much going on. And, you know, the evening show ending, having to like take a big pause, you know, that I understand. There was like some family things that went on. So like, you know, that had to take a pause, and I understood that. And, you know, the big change and people getting laid off for the morning show and the whole station, it was a big reminder there that I'm like, oh my God, like everything things that I like sweat and tears can get stripped away at any point if it's not yours.
Yes.
You know, I'm like, this is not mine. Like, I don't have something that's like my baby, my thing. Like, you know, you start feeling disposable. You start feeling like, you know, you're just a number, you know, all this stuff where all these things were going through my head, and I'm just like, this is not okay. Like, I don't know what I'm doing now, and I want to continue with it, but it was just very confusing. Also, personal life things going on during that time where I was just going like, what's going on?
It's a lot.
Yeah. So I then was working Coachella, and then I did end up applying for the Apple Music job. And I had like 5 interviews over the span of like 3 months. You know, I still hadn't heard from them. Like, okay, I guess I didn't get this. But when I was at Coachella, that's when I heard, and they gave me the job offer. And I was like,
what?
I was doing, oh my God, broadcast technical producer. So basically like
At
running,
Apple Music.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing that. And so I accepted the job, and I basically, after that, I wasn't doing Coachella anymore. I wasn't doing the evening show anymore. I wasn't doing the morning show. And I went full time with Apple Music. And the last 5 years, that's what it was. And I mean, $1 trillion company, they can take care of you, you know, like, so I was getting paid right. Things are right, where I'm like, oh my God, this is what it feels like for someone to just have like one job. Like, what? I have evenings, you know, I'm like, I can like take trips. I can afford trips. I'm like, this is crazy. So the last 5 years, that's what I was doing. And there I also grew a lot. I moved quickly, and, you know, just learned so much being there. And I'm very grateful for that experience. After that, so what is this? So towards the end of my time there, layoffs started happening. I don't know if you remember, like all the big layoffs, all the big layoffs, you know, happening in all these big tech companies. I got hit with the layoff there. And at that point, I do remember that it was pretty devastating, you know. I'm like, oh my God, like what? Like, you know, but I mean, maybe I'll get into this a little bit later. It ended up being like definitely a blessing in disguise, because later on there was a lot of information that I learned that I was like, oh my God, so God was looking out for me this whole time, you know? So, yeah, but during that time, and it happened like during the perfect time, because I had already a trip planned to India with my family, with my parents. I was like, okay, I want to take them on a trip.
Yes, travel.
And India has been like on my list forever since like middle school to like go to India.
And now you had the funds to do it.
Yeah, at that point. Well, at this point, I know I was laid off yet when I planned everything.
Sure,
so,
but
I did. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna treat my parents. You know, this will be great. And it was a perfect excuse too, because one of my friends was getting married out there. So I was like, okay, I'm like, I can plan a whole trip and somehow make it to end up at her wedding, you know? So I planned this whole thing, and it was the most beautiful trip of my life. You know, I told my parents, you don't worry about anything. You know, I'm going to book everything, every hotel, every flight, every taxi, everything, personal driver, everything was planned. And I did all that. And it felt so great to do that. So
happy for you.
So great.
What a feeling.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. The crazy thing is that like I got laid off a few days before the trip.
Oh no.
Yeah. So like that
Did you
Friday,
tell them?
No. That Friday.
They would have ruined it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They wouldn't have gone.
I was shook and crying, you know, I was just like, oh my God. And that Friday I got laid off, and we were flying out that next Tuesday. So that whole weekend where I was gonna be packing. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. But I was also like, okay, thank God I paid this stuff already, because how are we going to do this trip? I'm like, I definitely didn't tell them the whole time there, so it was like my eat, pray, love, like moment, being there. And I got so much closer to my parents, like literally was with them every day for like 3 weeks. We did India and then ended in Thailand, but every day, every meal together. I was surprised that they weren't annoying me or anything, because people are like, oh, how can you do that? And I'm like,
but when you're traveling, it's such a different
I'm just like,
space.
no, I'm like, I love them. And it was so nice. And they were so cute. Immigrant parents, like they were just so cute, and everything for them was just like, they're so grateful. And like, I would just see them like, look at everything like, wow. And I'm like, this is worth it. This is worth it. And I don't have to talk about what's going on with me right now. I just want to have very good quality time with them. I'm like, these are memories that are going to last forever. So definitely one of the best things I think so far of my life, just being able to experience that, like by myself with my parents, like I don't have to share them with my other siblings, nothing else. Like just
an experience.
So it was beautiful. And
so then, okay, you're laid off. You're taking this insane lifetime trip to India with your parents. What are you thinking when you're coming back home?
One, it's time to face reality in a sense. But I'm also just filled with gratitude. I'm like,
you weren't freaking out like, oh my God, the sky's falling.
Yeah. Before the trip I was, and then like, during the trip I was thinking about it too. I'm like, it would have been such a bummer to have an amazing experience and then like getting laid off coming back, I'm like, I think it was divine timing, how that happened, where it's like, like I was like, okay, you're not going to be working here anymore. So, let me give you, someone gets laid off. They're not going to, well, unless you just have money like that. I'm like, you're not going to just go to a country for 3 weeks to like think about it, or to like, you're not going to do that. So that wouldn't have happened if it would have been like afterwards, I'm like, so it was beautiful. And also, I mean, India developed, but also still considered like a third world country. There's a lot of poverty out there. And I witnessed a lot of it, I did like touristy things, and I did also like local things. So I saw so much, and you just your perspective comes back differently. And it's like, and you see some people so happy with almost nothing, where I'm just like, what is a job layout? Like, who cares? Like everything was just kind of like, it's what okay.
Opportunity to have those questions.
So it was definitely like a live, eat, pray, right?
Yeah. Eat, pray, love.
Yeah. One of those moments for me. And it was beautiful. Like I came back like actually like happy, relieved. I waited a month after to still tell my parents. Yeah. I didn't live at home. So they were just like, oh yeah, you're at work. I'm like, yeah. I was working on things, but like I had to tell them.
Not technically at work.
Yeah. But that was like definitely life-changing for me.
And then so you getting laid off, you going on this trip, you having this time to introspect, which is very rare for people to get that time. Which I think puts us where we are today. What has this given you an opportunity to see for yourself?
So it's definitely given me an opportunity I didn't think I would have. It's crazy because there was right away people like when they started finding out, they were like, oh, like there's a job offer here, this all corporate stuff. Cause I've done corporate like past 15 years, where this and that. And there was something inside of me that was like, no, like I don't.
So you got offers.
Yeah, there was some. Yeah. And there's still some today, where I'm like, no, but there was just something inside of me that was like, no, how that goes. How that is like, no. And I also, before the layoff, like I was also questioning like my purpose in life. A lot of my work was very technical, especially after COVID, it became really remote as well. So I wasn't around people. I was a lot of times behind a computer, this, that. And I'm like, this, and it would take a lot of my time, where I'm like, this is what my life is, like, I don't think so. And I always had like that, like that part of me that's like, no, my purpose I know is to serve, to heal, to, be there for people. And I don't feel like I'm doing that with this, So I felt like, especially after India, I'm like, I think this is an opportunity to like rewrite, reinvent, and just, I felt like, well, just kind of like, I'm like, no, I'm like, when am I going to get this opportunity again? You know, like I can go back to a job. I know how that is. You try to climb the corporate ladder. I'm there for another 5 years. You know, I'm 34 years old. I'm like, am I going to be 40 still figuring this out? Which is okay. But, you know, in my head, I felt like there was a really like good opportunity there. So I started doing more freelance work.
That's what you're doing now.
Yeah. So that's now most of my work is private and freelance. You know, I'm still.
So you're your own boss now.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. Like
it's
like
best.
No one tells me what to do. No, I don't have to wake up at a certain moment. Obviously responsibilities, but I'm like, no one tells me what to do. But every decision I make has to be one. I do work I do work that other people do depend on. So I know I have to be responsible, you know, but I make sure, you know, just that like I feel happy, you know, I'm like, okay, I can take care of myself in different ways and everything falls. It's like there's a power where it just falls into your own hands, you know? So during this time, this happened actually like last year was when I got laid off. So during that time, I had went to Mexico with Jessica Flores, who I know you love, and you've just had her on the show too. So she's amazing. Yeah, I know, Jessica. She invited me to Jalpa, Zacatecas, where her family's at for like Christmas, you know? So I went out there, you know, that's a whole different story, but I had an amazing time with her and her family, beautiful family. But what I'm getting to is that there was this artist that would sing at all the plazas, at the clubs around there, the jaripeos, you know, where they do all the, you know, the ranches, all of that. This artist, Adam Valenzuela, who he would be just everywhere. And I just saw the charisma. He would perform. I'm like, oh my God, he sounds great. And he'd be everywhere, nonstop performing. And I saw like the engagement he had with the crowd. Like he had followers, like people would go see him everywhere. Okay. And I was very impressed. So we just would talk. And it just was like oh my God, da da da. And I didn't say anything. I worked in music, you know, but like just he's from there. So small town where he's like, looks like you're not from here. Let me know if you need anything. Oh. Long story short, we started there a joke where I was like, oh, well, I'm your manager. Once you found out I worked in music, I'm your manager. And I came back home, you know, that was a joke, had a great time. I came back home, you know, was still at Apple, was still doing all these things. And there was an opportunity where with Dell Records, you know, big Mexican music label, where they were having an event, and then me and Jessica were going to this, and we're like, we should invite Adan. You know, like he's born in the U.S., so for him it's easy for him. You know, he has that luxury that he could come to the U.S. And we invited him to come to this event, and he came, and you know, we introduced him to some of our friends there at the label. And, you know, they're like, oh, we'll have him perform, you know, like, so he went up there with the banda, performed, and they loved him. And, you know, I'm like, you know, I feel like this guy's got it, you know. He stayed at my place for like that last month. Within a month, he had a car, job, and a place to live. No. And basically he hasn't left since. No. This was last year, February, around that time.
And you're his manager.
And I'm his manager. So it just happened. And I've tried being a manager before. That was another story. And it didn't work out because I'm like, no, I'm babysitting too much. And it's crazy. They say like when something's meant, like it just happens. It's easy. It's easy. And it
should not be that much work.
Yeah. And it's still easy. Like
it's work, but it shouldn't be that hard for it to happen. Yeah.
So that's why also, you know, when the layoff happened and all that, I'm like, well, you know what? This also, for that reason, it needed to happen. It's conflict of interest. I can't be managing and working for Apple Music. So I knew something was going to change there. You know, I was like, I can't be here and do that. So everything was just perfect. But I've been working with him since, and he's doing great. This last year was just, you know, building a foundation for him. I have many contacts here in LA in the music, you know, been working here for 10 plus years, where I'm like, okay, let me just you know, I'm like, we need a strong foundation. I'm not going to ask any of my friends, you know, that are in high places in music for favors. I want, you know, them to like, you know, trust you, see your work ethic, you know, your talent. And I want him to earn that as well. So you know, so it's been great. That part's been great. So Adam Valenzuela.
Yes.
Yeah. We changed each other's lives. It's great.
That's wonderful. I love that. Just real quick, how could people find him?
So he's on all socials and also on all streaming platforms. His name is Adan Valenzuela, spelled Adan, last name Valenzuela, Valenzuela. on IG, you know, like it's Adam Valenzuela Music. So
Oh
please support.
my gosh.
Yes.
So
And
you're like a full-blown manager now?
yes. So now manager, which keeps me, that's a full-time job because things happen all the time. And during this time as well, you know, like I was mentioning, I still had that little seed in me where I'm like, I still need to be doing more for people. You know, I'm like, I'm here to serve, you know, like I am a God-fearing woman, you know, and I do believe, you know, like that's, you know, my purpose is here, you know, like to be God's instrument here. I'm like, you know, I'm here to serve. So how can I do that? You know? And that's where during this time, it started with one of my friends as she was establishing her nonprofit. This is a different one. Where we would go to TJ, you know, we would go to TJ, we'd go to a church out there that would hold about like 1,000 refugees there. Wow. And we just brought like 10 trucks full of like clothing, things for kids.
Such a need at the border.
Oh, so much of that. And we would do that. So that was monthly, collecting donations, all this stuff. So, you know, just doing that work and like, how can we expand this? How can we, like, you know, outreach, all these things, which I wouldn't have had time to do all these things before.
Right.
You know, during this time too, Flor, which I know you know very well, Flor Martinez, yes, founder of Celebration Nation, good friend of mine. You know, at this point we're friends, and you know, we have like a brunch, like a woman empowerment brunch, and we're just talking, and she, you know, she knows what I'm about, she knows what I'm doing, and that's where there's a community event that, you know, she's thinking about, and she's like, you know, I want you to be in the committee, like, you know, would you accept that? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm in a time where I could do all that, you know? I'm like, yes. So, and I definitely like love what she's about. So, you know, I was like, you know what? Yes. So we started working together, and this was for Comunidad Christmas. And
that's where we met.
Yes. That's where we met. So, you know, and Comunidad Christmas is a big fundraiser event, you know, for the community. And we're raising money and toys and donations for farm workers and kids of farm workers. Yes. So, you know, beautiful work. And, you know, that doing that whole event with her and the team with you, you know, which thank you so much for partnering, you know, and it wouldn't be possible without ZA lawyers, know that. So we're so grateful for everybody that's like in there, you know, helping us. And it was easy after that. Like it felt so natural, you know, and that's where, you know, her and I started working closer together. And that's where she also told me, like, I want you to have more like a permanent role here, you know, like, so let's work on that. And now, you know, she's based in San Jose. I'm in Los Angeles. So, you know, now I'm the Los Angeles lead for a lot of the initiatives that we're taking down here, as you know. So, you know, the food drives, and now planning to expand, you know, with universities and all that different things. So,
see what I mean when I tell you that she does many things at once very well. So I know your story is going to resonate with a lot of people, because no matter what people are doing in their journey, you have faced, I think, and continue to face so many what ifs. The self-doubt, the family in your ear, you try and the thing doesn't work. It doesn't work. And timing is everything, as you know, like you've seen it time and time again. Yeah. And now I think it's so wonderful to see you in a space where you're doing the management, which you've built so much equity for 10 years, learning this very nuanced music industry, behind the scenes education, which most people don't know anything about. They know the artist. They have no idea how the machine works. Yeah. You do. Hello, that's amazing. And then you're able to cultivate with Flor and Celebration Nation, continuing to change the narrative for our community, being a resource, being the provider. And you're out there. I know you're out there doing the food drives every week, every other week, and you are boots on the ground. So I'm just so grateful that you took the time to join me today and share your story, because it will resonate. And how can people follow you or reach you and learn about what you do?
Well, first of all, thank you. That was very 100%. Sweet of you to say. I appreciate that, because I can go on about you. You're amazing. No. So I appreciate that. But to find me, so social media, I try to stay consistent. My first and last name, so it's Ophelia Zúñiga, spelled Ophelia, last name Zúñiga, Zuniga. I do have an underscore at the end of my username for the most part.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, I open DMs, I respond to people. Whether it's collaborations, any kind, whether it's music collaborations or anything for the community to do. Want to join the drives or want to
Yes.
volunteer or have an organization. We're all for just growing and expanding and just helping as many people as possible during our time here on this earth. So
that's it. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thank
and
you.
I can't wait to have you back for more updates.
Thank you.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being amazing.
Bye.
Bye.